how self-aware this movie is, I'm really surprised that they didn't call it F9 Moonracer. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. As part of my Fast and Furious franchise review series, today I'm going to be talking about the 2021 action sequel, F9. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. F9 stars Vin Diesel, John Cena, and Michelle Rodriguez, and was directed by Justin Lin. Following a distress call, Dom and the rest of his crew are forced to come out of their short-lived retirement in order to thwart another global threat while dealing with unexpected family issues. It's crazy to think that it's been 20 years since this franchise began. What started as a little crime movie about street racing has developed into one of the most entertaining and utterly insane action franchises out there. And at this point in the franchise, if you're still a fan of the series, you're coming for that insanity. You're coming to see what ridiculous physics-defying action set pieces they dreamed up to top the previous film. You're coming to see what absurd direction they decide to take the story this time. You're coming for the ridiculousness, but you're also probably coming for the family. And this movie delivers on both fronts, giving you just about everything you would expect from the 10th film in this franchise. F9 picks up a few years after the events of the Fate of the Furious, and wastes no time throwing the crew back into another techie save-the-world mission where they once again function as an elite special ops team. And from that perspective, the basic story here is very much along the same lines as the past few films. Personally, I haven't been too enamored with most of those tech-based save-the-world stories, so the plot here isn't anything overly special for me either. There are a few curveballs that get thrown at us every now and then, but most of the plot beats are pretty predictable. You know where the story's going, you can guess the various betrayals and alliances before they happen, but for a Fast and Furious movie, I don't really think of that as a significant negative. It just means I've got the franchise formula worked out. That said, I do think that the majority of this film's issues stem from its story. As has been the case for a while now with this franchise, the story gets very convoluted very quickly. There are an abundance of overly convenient occurrences and things that are just presented to us to accept and move on with the story. Time and time again, characters just happen to be at exactly the right place at the right time, or our crew is capable of hacking anything or doing anything tech-related in the time it takes for them to say what it is they're trying to do. They're the kind of conveniences that don't make any real sense, but at the same time, this franchise is beyond trying to make sense, so it works in a weird way, especially given just how self-aware this film is. Other movies in the series have had their self-aware moments, but this one entertainingly really leans into some of the common criticisms of the franchise. It wouldn't be a Fast and Furious movie without family, and this movie gives us a double dose of the franchise's staple theme. The family at the center of this franchise has been growing constantly since the 4th film. New characters were getting pulled in with each new movie, and even external characters like Hobbs were even sort of unofficially part of the family. Even though there's still a ton of characters in this film, somehow it feels like the core family was more compact this time around. We get plenty of moments of the team working together, but I thought it was interesting how the group was split into smaller teams for part of the film. Roman and Tej are always an entertaining duo, but I liked seeing Lenny and Mia working together too. They're a pair of characters who have had surprisingly few on-screen interactions over the course of this franchise, so it was nice to see them get some time together. The next two family-related things I want to talk about were both revealed in the trailers, but I view them as kind of being spoilers, so I do want to give a warning here for that. I'm not going to get into anything spoilery about the film, but if you haven't seen the trailers, you might want to skip ahead a minute or so. Okay, you're still here? You've seen the trailers? If so, you know that Han is back. I'm not going to spoil how or why or anything related to that, but I will say that his role here is perhaps smaller than you might be anticipating. However, his presence does help to make the family feel a bit more complete than it has for a couple movies now. The other family-related thing shown in the trailers that I wanted to briefly mention is Dom's brother, Jacob. I imagine most of you were like me watching the trailer and thinking, how have we never heard of this guy before? But the movie makes it work. There's a reason, and we get to see that through a series of flashback sequences set in 1989. Aside from the chronology seeming a little off, I don't know about you, but Dom doesn't look 13 years old to me in those flashbacks. The sequences provide some connections to earlier films, and satisfyingly expand on the Toretto lore that we were given the groundwork for way back in the first movie. John Cena is okay here. I think he works well in the Fast and Furious franchise. I'm just not entirely convinced that this was the right role to put him in. Okay, so we've talked about family, now it's time to talk about the other key aspect of any Fast and Furious movie, the action. If you've never seen a Fast and Furious, or haven't seen one since, like, Tokyo Drift, then you might be taken aback by the utter absurdity on display here. But if you've seen any of the recent films in the series, you already know what to expect. Crazy car insanity, impossible superhuman feats that defy the laws of gravity and physics, cars being regarded as safe and soft landing pads for people flying through the air. The action here is completely ridiculous, but completely in line with the ramping up of absurdity we've seen for more than a decade now. There's no denying that this one blasts off to some new heights, but it's full of more of the entertaining action that makes us roll our eyes and say, that's ridiculous. But that's pretty cool. In fact, I think that phrase can pretty accurately sum up this franchise, or at least what it's become over the last 10 years. And so, with that in mind, F9 delivers exactly what you would expect the latest installment of this franchise to deliver. It continues to tie the different films together in increasingly more silly and convoluted ways, it goes even bigger and more ridiculous with its action, and it doubles down on the family. We know that there are at least 2 more movies yet to come in the main franchise, and this film hints at some of the possibilities, but the way the series has unfolded, I think anything is possible. They're gonna keep pushing the limits of absurdity and somehow go even bigger than they did here, and I'm ready for it. I can't wait to see what they do next. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Okay, you guys know the drill by now. So pro number 1, altogether, the action. This has been a pro staple in the franchise for a decade and a half now, so really no surprise here. Following in the tire marks of its immediate predecessors, F9 goes bigger and more ridiculous with its action than ever before. The unbelievable physics-defying superhero-level action is completely expected at this point in the franchise, and doesn't disappoint. While it doesn't offer the best action in the series, it does have plenty of memorable, fun, and absurd sequences that are sure to make it into any discussion of the franchise's action. Everybody will be talking about the new heights that this film reaches with some of its action, but my personal favorite may be a polarizing choice, but that magnet chase was just so much fun. The second pro is another unsurprising one for the franchise. Come on, I know you guys know. The family. This idea of family has been a core theme from the beginning, and while some of the films have handled it better than others, it's been one of the most engaging elements of this franchise. The Fate of the Furious went a bit overboard with the idea, so much so that it actually became a detriment, so I was a little nervous about it coming into this follow-up, but luckily the franchise is back on track in that regard. This movie plays around a bit more with the idea of actual family by incorporating Jacob Toretto into the story, and the core team of mostly unrelated family is as strong and compelling as ever, plus there are some very welcome reunions. On the con side, there are a number of issues, but I think they all fall under the umbrella of the story. So this movie is ridiculous, but for me at least, the absurdity of the story isn't really a problem. It's more an issue of the excessive story conveniences. Because they've been trying to connect big, overarching plot threads for the last decade of the series, certain things have gotten very convoluted, and remain so here. And in order to make all the pieces fit together, it comes off a bit contrived at times. Things get introduced that don't really make too much sense, like Dom having a brother that we somehow never knew about. But because of certain Deus Ex Machina elements that have been embedded into the fabric of the franchise, like a certain enigmatic character, just about anything can be explained in a way that works, but maybe isn't necessarily logically satisfying. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying any of the films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give F9 3 out of 5 paws. It's not without its story issues, but this is exactly the type of film you would expect from the Fast and Furious franchise. It's big, a little silly, and packed with ridiculous action and that core family heart. I would recommend F9 to existing fans of the Fast and Furious franchise. Although this has all the hallmarks of a big, ridiculous action blockbuster that could be enjoyed by anyone looking for a popcorn movie, I think this one would be a little confusing to people who are unfamiliar with the franchise. It really banks on your pre-existing knowledge of most of the characters and their relationships. Also, the level of absurdity could be a little jarring to newcomers who haven't had the benefit of the buildup of ridiculousness in the series. But anybody who's enjoyed, especially the past few installments of this franchise, should get exactly what they expect here, and will probably enjoy this one too. If you liked F9, I would recommend the 8th film in the franchise, The Fate of the Furious. It's the immediate predecessor to F9, so there are some obvious story connections and plot through lines, but I also think it has a similar overall feel, sharing the position of being a post-Furious 7 Paul Walker movie. If you want another Fast and Furious movie with a very over-the-top tech focus, I would suggest Fast and Furious 6. And if you enjoyed the ridiculousness of the franchise finally jumping the space shark, you've gotta check out Moonraker. It's one of the goofier installments in the James Bond franchise, and also offers a similarly bizarre third act. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen F9? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what do you think they will or should do in the 10th Fast and Furious movie to top the story and action ridiculousness of this film? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insider information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe here at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.